we got game 3 of the 2021 World Chess Championship, and this one was a relatively uneventful affair as we got ourselves another anti-marshal, and we're looking at the game again from Carlsen's perspective. Nepo has the white pieces, and we get a pretty standard Spanish game. And after b5, the key moment, again, is if we see c3, d5 is going directly into the marshal, and a4 is an anti-marshal. I believe I mentioned it in game 1, and Kasparov made this look good in his match against Short in the early games. So after a4, bishop b7, and we're following the main line up until this point. And here, there are a number of reasonable moves for black. The lion's share of the games in the database at this juncture stem from knight a5, and there's roughly 900 games or so. And c5, you get a little bit of space to work with, and then you need to reroute the bishop so it's out of the way. No need for it to be on b7. And it's a dynamically balanced position. Feel like black has really no problems here. And another option is going knight d7 with the idea of rerouting the knight to harass that bishop. And I would probably lean more towards this variation personally. And now on to what Carlsen played, which is the 4th choice in the database. And I want to say there was less than 50 games available in practice. But both players played very accurately here. Knight f1 was first choice. h6, taking away g5 from the knight and the bishop. Bishop d2. No other square seems to be feasible for the bishop, as if you put it on e3, it's in the way of this knight potentially rerouting. Bishop f8, solid enough, getting away from the eye of the rook. If white goes for d4 at some point, this is going to unleash it. Knight e3, and staying flexible, knight e7, eyeing the squares that the knight is going for, and c4. Got to find some pawn break to try to mix it up in the position. Knight c6, simply going back now that damage has been done to the pawn structure, and white has 3 pawn islands. a5. I really like this move as it secures the b4 square for further use from our knight, and we'd be happy to reach a position where we have the 2 bishops, as it is definitely something that can crack open quite quickly. Black has the ability in a lot of these positions to play d5. And this is one of the few moments that I felt that the game could be a bit more interesting. If black goes knight d7 here with one of the ideas that we saw in move 10, the secondary system, and again the idea is to potentially reroute to c5, but after bishop c2 we have d5, which looks very counterintuitive, but after knight b4 black is getting some pressure and a decent amount of play. More than likely it fizzles, but I found this line very interesting, supported by the Silicon boss. In the main game, bishop c8 was played, and a lot of jockeying happens in these Spanish games. d4, very understandable move, looking to get rid of the weak pawn on d3. Clip, 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 clip. Where's the best square for our bishop? e6, keeping an eye on that knight. And after this is probably one of the few key moments in the game, if you're a pause your video type of guy, to figure it out. What's black's plan? Because white looks to have a pretty menacing position. Both bishops look great. Queen lined up with the c3 bishop, potentially looking at bothering our monarch, and can't have that. So what's an active plan here that you can find? All right, hopefully you paused the video and you said, well, what's my bishop doing? What are these pawns doing other than kind of just being in the way? C6 with the follow-up idea of D5, and now black has full equality here with no issues, and a big bailout takes place. We have a series of forcing moves. Bishop B4, and we have same color bishop ending. Can't allow the intrusion of the rook on the open file. And after rook b1, this is essentially a draw offer, but I found this position instructive, and this is about where I started watching the game. Very, very uneventful game, but I think this is instructive as watch how the boss gradually improves the position without taking any risk and puts the onus on white to do something. And when he sees white is not going to do anything, they reach move 40 and get a lot more time. They quickly agree to a draw. So we're at move 33 at this juncture. And how do you try to get something out of nothing in this type of position? Well, you go after the weaknesses you can get at. And the thing is, white has the better pawn structure. We can't allow the white king to get in. Our king is in an excellent position in conjunction with our forward c-pawn, cutting off all these squares, and our bishop as well. We've made a wall, and we are making sure that the white king can never get in. So that's one of the first things to notice in the position. Secondly, when you have bishops of same color, we want to put the pawns on the opposite color of our bishop. This, one, makes our bishop stronger as the pawns agree, and two, makes our opponent's bishop weaker. So gradually we're going to see some improvement here. So the good and first place to start, good question is, where do we want our pawns ideally? So another pause your video moment to try to figure out what's going to be best and ideal, and then go from there. Okay, hopefully you said first, this guy isn't doing anything. So where's the best square for him? F6 kind of passive, or F4? F5, F4. So we've already improved our position a bit, because now in the event that G-pawn is ever touched, we're going to take en passant, and then we can take on H3. That just doesn't look fun for the first player. So we have stuck those pawns on the king side. So all white can really do is wait. All right, C5. And notice over the course of just a couple moves how much the position has improved for black. Yes, it's still a draw, but focusing on technique is important. Because if you don't focus on the technique in positions, how are you going to win these types of equal games? If there's an opportunity to win it. And here, bishop d7, and this pawn is stuck on the same color of our bishop, so let's just keep an eye on it. And the bishop, notice how it's staying flexible. Keeping an eye, so there's no progress by white. And white essentially says, all right, yeah, I see no way in. I'm securing this pawn to make sure you can't ever push or do anything. And this is where both players see that, I mean, clearly, both of them already know it's a draw, but with this move f3, this is essentially a draw offer. And king f6, h4, this creates a barrier its own right. So there is no progress that our king can make, and the position's locked. White has no plans of touching the g-pawn, which is seen after king e2. And move 40 is crossed, and the players quickly agree to a draw. So probably the most interesting moment to me was showing you the little bit of in-game technique. But honestly, this is the type of game that you expect at some point in a world championship. And some people go, well, this is so boring. Like, they just didn't do anything. Imagine watching like the World Cup and every game is a draw. Nobody enjoys that. Okay, I put the blame on the person playing with the white pieces. You have plenty of ways to inject life into positions. I don't blame black at all in a world championship match being satisfied with full equality and getting draws. I feel like, especially so far from what we've seen, I feel that Jan is more apt to get equality and take draws. If he gets anything going, he's like, all right, it's fine. I'll just take a draw when he has the white pieces. Game 1 is a good example of that. But Carlsen in Game 2, even though he was worse, as soon as he got anything in the position, he pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed. And much can be said for that. I think that you're going to see Carlsen try to press anytime he has white. And when he has black, he's going to take absolutely no risks. And hopefully, we break the drought after 5 years and we get a decisive game pretty soon. Thanks for joining in on this quick analysis of Game 3 from the 2021 World Chess Championship.